Critics on the left making it clear what they think about President Trump.
Today in the White House, we have perhaps the worst and most dangerous president.
This president is the worst that I've ever seen.
The worst president in the history.
I would even argue that he is the worst after 1 year.
Donald Trump is the worst in the history of the American presidency.
But the polls are telling a very different story. President Trump's approval numbers are now higher than President Obama's were at this point in 2010. That's according to the latest Rasmussen numbers. So is the left off the mark on this one? Here to debate is RNC spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany and Fox News contributor Jessica Tarlov. I'll start with you, Kayleigh, because you're a Republican and you've worked for the president. What is it about this president and this administration that has his approval numbers so high right now?
Well, look at his success. I mean, this is a president setting records. You look at the millions of jobs he's created, 22 regulations rescinded for every one, record pace of confirming circuit court judges, wages up for the first time in 8 years. This is a historic presidency. And surprise, surprise, the media and liberal Democrats are out of touch. This president, mark my words, will go down as one of the greatest presidents, if not the greatest in modern history. And liberal Democrats will never see it coming.
Jessica, you listen to the liberal Democrats, you watch the mainstream media. They're telling a different story than what these numbers show. What's your reaction?
Well, they're telling a different story than what one number shows. They're telling the story actually of the average. If you go to Real Clear Politics right now, you'll see that the president is hovering at an average of 42% approval rating, whereas President Obama was at 48%. This is an outlier poll. There have been significant issues with the Rasmussen poll, which is known to oversample Republicans. They also use the likely voter turnout model. There's a great Pew Research paper that I would recommend everyone read about the 2014 midterm elections and how we can better predict outcomes and improve upon the likely voter turnout model. Listen, I think President Trump is doing better than he was, but if you look at the Gallup Daily Tracker poll, for instance, he's hovering at 39% approval. I'm not willing to say yet that he's the worst president in history, but he's certainly not at 50%, and he's certainly not better than President Obama.
Well, according to this one poll,
but it's just one poll,
and it's not just one number. You're comparing this number at this exact day, April 2nd, almost a year, a little more than a year into the presidency, to the exact same date of President Obama. So it's two different numbers, 50% for President Trump and 46% for President Obama. Now, Kayleigh, do you think that these hateful attacks on the left, do you think the backlash or it's backfiring on them and the American people are tired of it?
Oh, no doubt about it. And that's what Rush Limbaugh says. And he's absolutely right. The mainstream media, their relentless attacks against this president, their conspiracy theories and their lies are driving more people into his corner, driving people to give him a chance. And Jessica, I want to point out the Rasmussen poll was actually the most accurate poll in the 2016 election. The likely voter turnout model is the preferable model as it only polls those voters likely to vote.
But the issue is how to predict that.
I would also point out the CNN poll, President Trump gained 8 points, and that just came out last week.
Something I noticed,
Republicans gained 5.
I wanted to ask you something. Something I noticed, the Stormy Daniels, a lot of people watched that interview, but clearly the American voter either doesn't believe it or they don't care about that issue.
Yeah, we talked about this last week. The American voter doesn't care anymore that the President of the United States of America is a cheater. What they may care about is the fact that he paid...
Alleged.
Well, no, we actually know that he cheated on his first 2 wives. We don't know about Melania at this point. We just have the word of Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels at this point. But what we do know is that they don't care about that necessarily, but they might care about hush money. They might care about intimidation. But we know this. The election's going to be about the economy. It's going to be about health care, the bread and butter issues. But to take one poll number, and as I said, one that has reliably oversampled Republicans, which could explain why Obama's number in 2010 was lower than the average when he was at a net approval, and you have President Trump at a net disapproval, if you look at the average again, could explain that. As for likely voter turnout models, Kayleigh, we can have a totally separate segment about that and their worth, but we do know that the issues for Hillary Clinton in terms of polling in the swing states that lost her this election are due to likely turnout voter models if you look at 538 analysis.
Okay. Thank you so much, ladies. Kayleigh, I started with you. I'll end with you, Jessica. Thanks. You ladies, too.